There we go. Sorry, guys. All right. Okay. Let me. Doop, doop, doop. Here we go. Awesome. Hi, everyone. Good morning and good afternoon and good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Thanks so much for hopping on. Let me see here. Okay. Right. Oh, I went to sleep late, um, and it's made my morning a little rough. I I had just decided to do some plant watering really late at night. I'm Brian and I are watching the House of the Dragon, um, and so we ended up putting it on late. And while we were doing that, I was watering some plants here, and then I got carried away with the plant chores. So I started doing repottings and of the plants and pruning them and everything. And I ended up just staying up a little bit more than I intended. Um, but yeah, um, well, it really does. You don't even realize how much time passes. Um, and I actually wanted to open with that a little bit. So, um, one thing that I did want to just impart because I've learned the hard way. Um, so you know, life gets busy. I have a lot of succulents. Um, so while I have plant zones so that I'm grouping them together in terms of how often they need to get watered, things like that, I like to keep my plants kind of in these little areas so that it's a visual cue, right? It's like, okay, all of these guys tend to be watered around the same time. So it's just easier for me to keep up with our plants because we do have quite a few. But life gets in the way. If I'm not feeling very well, things like that, sometimes it can take a little bit longer to get some of our plants watered. Um, and so I was like, oh, I should probably talk about rehydrating very dehydrated plants. Um, and something things you should do and things you shouldn't do. Um, so if you go through a period of illness, or even if it's depression, or just you get slammed at work, or you have family, you have like things back to back, and then you're like, oh my gosh, I was supposed to water my plants last week, and maybe, or 2 weeks ago even, um, or it has happened where it's been like 3 weeks past where I should have watered them. Now, luckily, a lot of our plants, again, are cacti or succulents, so they can they can deal with a little bit of that drought period. But you there is a method of rehydrating them, um, because during that process, uh, while they're getting dehydrated, they might start to some of their roots might start to crisp up. And so even though you go, oh my gosh, I should have watered this, 3 weeks ago, even a month ago, there sometimes if you have like an aloe or, certain cacti, like they could totally go an extra month and still be alive, right? And might not even look affected. But the worst thing to do is to take it and then immediately give it a full bottom water where it's completely saturated. This can actually cause them to get root rot, and this is because a lot of those roots might have just dried off, and then if you go and inundate the entire plant in water, it now doesn't have the appropriate amount of roots to take up that water, to imbibe that water. So what ends up happening is now that base is just sitting in a lot of moisture, and it can cause that to rot. So this is something I've learned over the years, that if you have gone through a period of time where you have some plants that you just didn't water on time, it's a kind of a slow watering process. Think of it as like a slow refeeding process, for someone who hasn't eaten for a really long time. The worst thing you can do, right, is to give them like a full plate of food. Like you don't want to do that. You're going to get them really sick. Um, what you want to do is you start very softly, very small, like broths, kind of move upwards. Just yeah. So similar with your plants is you're going to want to take that plant. You can put it into what you usually use to water, but you just kind of do a little, you can use like squeeze bottles, or if you have a watering can, and kind of just go around, just let it soak through so that you see the water coming through. Kind of look to see if the water is actually going through, because some things that you'll notice. So you'll notice bubbles, bubbles happening in your substrate. And that is, there's been pockets of air that, are kind of stuck in there. Once the water is coming out, it's opening up those capillaries. That's usually a sign too that it's very, very dry. So that's one thing you might notice of bubbles. Um, Two, you might notice that some of your substrate, because your plant is so dry, has pulled away from the edges of the pot, right? It's just like it's almost like they got shrink wrapped, right? They just get really kind of sucked in. And that is usually depends on the type. One, it's just dehydration. It makes it smaller. There isn't the moisture to add that volume to it. But also we tend to have, especially if you are using still using the potting mixes that you get from your from the nursery. They have a lot of peat in them. This can also happen with coco coir, um, but it's very significantly, uh, like it's much more probable that there's going to be more of a peat mix, in those plants that you get from the nursery, and that's what happens. It just kind of it sucks up, and what's happening is that substrate is becoming hydrophobic. So hydrophobic means that it's thick, literally like it's afraid of water, at where when you water it, it just rolls and goes down the sides. So it's actually not even going into the substrate. So it takes a little bit more extra effort to make sure that whatever substrate is saturated actually gets saturated. So what you can do, so I have tweezers. You can also use barbecue skewers. If you have any little tool like that, that's just like a sharp little tool that you can use. Um, just make sure you're doing it very slowly, kind of very, very slowly. You're not stabbing. You're not stabbing. You don't want to completely ruin your roots or anything. But you're just going to go through, kind of create some channels. If you're seeing that as you're trying to water, it's just kind of going around, going off through the sides, nothing is getting sucked into your substrate. Um, so that's when it's pretty far gone. Thankfully, these guys, I was supposed to have watered them maybe like two and a half weeks ago. The ones here on the windowsill by in our living room. And so I had been working a lot on these guys because I had all those cuttings, and we had a couple weeks where we weren't feeling too great, and so it just happened. And so when we finally were watching the show, I was like, all right, this is a great time. Um, but that's when you start to go, okay, so what are all the ways to deal with this? So thankfully, um, these guys, they weren't so compacted that they were hydrophobic, but I wanted to make sure to bring that up because that can happen if you have a plant where you just completely blanked. Something happened, and you weren't able to get them watered in time. Um, so yeah, so kind of fighting back with the hydrophobic substrate and kind of making sure that water gets in there. But again, you don't want it to completely saturate, like a good bottom water where you give it where it's fully saturated. You don't want that. At most, you want it like halfway saturated. Um, I would say probably a quarter to be safe. So it's kind of like you're just reintroducing some water to your mix. So this is like for cacti. We're talking like aloes, um, kalanchoes, euphorbia. And so yeah, you just kind of reintroduce a little bit of water, and then that's kind of how you reintroduce the water. And then for the next watering, you see how they're doing. Um, in the past, I've made that mistake where, oh my gosh, my snake plant, I totally was supposed to have watered it with this other group, and I completely forgot. And then you give it a full water, and that poor thing has been so dehydrated, and the roots have started to die off. That now, even though you put it in the exact same spot, you lose it. Um, so yeah, so I just wanted to share that because I was like, yeah, I've made that mistake before in a panic, right? You're like, oh my gosh, the plant, and you give it like a full water, and it doesn't end well. Um, so so yeah, just wanted to make sure I shared that mishap because that has definitely happened. It's happened quite a few times with propagations, especially. So usually, if a plant is already established in a pot, it can fare a lot better with you know, that whole rehydration process. But crops, especially so if you just transferred a plant over um, from, like a, let's say, leca or water into soil, and then you let it kind of dry out, uh, it's going to have to rebuild those roots because it already had only a few roots to begin with. Those roots are probably gone. And so you want to kind of restart that process, but again, not by fully saturating it. Worst case, you might even want to take it out and re-put it in water and kind of get those roots started. That might end up being a better case because now those roots are gone. So I've had that happen with a few Haworthia. If I forget about the Haworthias, to water the Haworthias, and they had just started, the pups had just started rooting, I end up having to put them back into like a little propagation setup for them to kind of get those roots again, so then I can pop them back into the soil. So it happens. It happens, especially when you end up uh, having a really large, a really large collection. And so I said, let me share that because I don't want folks to end up making that same mistake because it sucks, especially if you have a plant that you really like, and then you already feel bad that you completely forgot to water it, and then you think you're helping it, and you end up kind of pu pushing it over the edge. So I wanted to share that. Um, Another thing too is that I noticed because this is a Western window. Um, and so we have our kitchen and our living room are open to a Western window. Um, and last week I was working on our some plants in the kitchen, and I had actually moved this aloe I have. I think it's called the walking aloe, and I had it in that window and in the kitchen window. Sorry, I'm like pointing as if you can see. Sorry, in the kitchen window, and I had it right up against the window, and it's this little thing. And it had at this point it was so the sun had been so intense that the plant looked purple. So it had so for those that don't know, so a lot of succulents, even cacti, um, will do this thing that's called blushing. And so for some succulents, blushing might happen around the edge of the leaf, right? Like jades where it gets like that red edge, or some like kalanchoes, some chryssulas. It brings out this really pretty like orange or cherry color to them that they're meant to have. Even echiverias as well. Some echiverias respond really nicely and blush in response to strong light, but in a way that's not detrimental to the plant. But then there's detrimental blushing. So there are certain plants where you don't necessarily want them to be blushing. One is, for instance, aloe, regular aloe. There are what they call blushing aloes. There are different types of aloes, but the typical like aloe vera um, ones that you can, or I think it's also aloe. Is it arborescent or I think it's arborescent. They're like the most common ones that we end up purchasing. Uh, they are supposed to be green. They are supposed to be green. You don't want them turning orange or pink or red or anything along that spectrum. That is usually a signal that it's getting way too much sunlight. Another cactus that I'm a houseplant consultant, so I see a lot of clients talk to me about are different types of holiday cacti. So the Christmas cactus, the Thanksgiving cactus, and the Eastern cactus. Easter, there we go, not Eastern. Easter cactus. Also, they're not meant to blush. So they're supposed to be green. Especially those are rainforest cacti. So they do not like strong light. They want to be pulled away from that strong light. But if this is happening to your plant, don't panic. It's a signal. It's your plant releasing anthocyanins. It's trying to protect itself. So it's kind of trying to create its own sunblock so that it doesn't get more burned than it is getting. Um, and what you just have to do is just pull your plant back. So pull it away from that light source, either put it in a different window entirely, or if you're like, well, I don't really have any other place to put it, at least move it several feet away from the window. It's too intense. That light is too intense. Um, it's gonna end up harming the plant in the long run. So I had this little aloe. It's a walking aloe, so it kind of grows these little stems, and then you can propagate and cut those. Uh, and so this poor thing, I had not noticed with this intense sun. So here in New York City, we've had some pretty hot days recently. It looks like today is going to be 80 finally. Yesterday, our car was saying it was 100, but it was saying it was like 97, 98 degrees outside. It was pretty hot, pretty hot. And what we ended up, so what I ended up doing is just moving this plant. I also moved my ripsalis. So I had a ripsalis that was pretty close to the window, and it was also getting burned. So I pulled it back, um, and I'm just gonna kind of leave it there because I had it like off to the side of the window. And this poor plant was also getting burned. So for those of you like in the city, our summer it's getting pretty intense. I was reading that in India they're having a crazy heat wave, and in Costa Rica, I had mentioned a few weeks back that my mom is from Costa Rica and lives there right now, and they've been having a ridiculous drought. There was just no rain whatsoever. It's been record-breaking heat, and now all of a sudden it's record-breaking rainfall, and so now they're getting crazy flooding. So the weather has been nuts. So I'm trying now to make sure that I'm more vigilant, especially on these really hot days. If I end up having to put my curtains down, I have white sheer curtains, and for those of you that might have some really like intense light exposures, if you have southern windows, western windows, uh, the sun can get pretty intense there. So you might end up wanting to put like a sheer curtain. What ends up happening is that like diffuses the light where it's still strong enough where it's giving your plants access to the sunlight, but it's just not as intense. Another option, if you're like, I don't want the sheer I don't want, the curtains won't work. You can get like decals, they call them like privacy film. You can get different types of privacy film, some that are just make it look slightly blurry, and so you still get all the light, but again, it's not as strong, not as strong. So just keep an eye out. So I moved this little guy away, and I think that was on Wednesday or Thursday, and it's already turning green again. So you could see it lost a bunch of leaves. Poor little guy was getting burnt, and I didn't even realize. Um, but it's starting to turn green again. So just wanted to show you they do come back to green. Um, so if it's caused, if the discoloration is caused by blushing, um, and so this is typical of succulents. Um, it can happen, so it's different in foliage plants. A lot of, let's say, aroids, for instance, like Monstera, um, some philodendrons, they do have a kind of like a blushing kind of uh, feature to them, where especially the bottoms might have some reds, or when they first emerge, they might have a really beautiful color red. And this is the anthocyanins protecting the plant from the leaf, the new leaf, from getting burnt, from losing moisture too quickly. Just overall, it's environment, right? It's a brand new environment, so it's gonna look red, and then it starts to harden off and turn into green. Um, but usually, if they start to get burned, they don't go through that yellowing. It's usually they'll get either big chunks of burnt leaves, or they might experience bleaching. So that's more common, is bleaching. And they they end up kind of having a translucent, it ends up kind of being a like white splotches that get like a waxy kind of parchment paper type of texture to them. And so that lets you know that that's getting bleached. And unfortunately, that can't turn back. So once a plant's leaves are burned, that's that section is basically it. You can still save a lot of other sections of the leaf. You can just, if you move your plant away from that light situation, um, and you can cut off that part of the leaf if you'd like. But I never want to sacrifice an entirely healthy leaf, if it just has a couple cosmetic issues. So it will still continue to work, but it will have some burn marks. Yeah, just look out for that. Look out for that. Oh, Julia's barking. If you hear that, Julia, our parrot, is currently copying our neighbor's dog. If you hear that, that's what she's doing. Um, and now I don't know. She's doing some alarms. Um, but yeah, that we that's what we've been dealing with here, is a lot of heat. We've also been battling trying to keep the apartment cool, but also keep the humidity up. So that has been a struggle. Right now, I think it's at 42 humidity, which is a little low. Yesterday it was in the 60s of in terms of humidity. Um, and but then it was getting a little too warm in here, so we had to put the AC a little stronger and lower that temperature a little bit, just to bring that down, because it was pretty hot yesterday. I think that was the hottest day that we've had, um, this whole like heat wave that we had. Um, so gosh, yeah, it was very, very uncomfortable. But yeah, trying to keep these guys from drying out, because ACs can cause the air to become very, very dry. So if you have plants especially close to the AC, or you're going to have the AC running for long periods of time, because let's say we're experiencing a heat wave, this is going to be a game you end up having to play. Having to either turn on humidifiers in certain areas, uh, what we have, little humidifiers that we have in little separate zones. Sometimes, since our living room and our kitchen is connected, sometimes I'll just boil water, and that brings up the humidity uh, substantially. And so that also helps to curb that dryness. But that's just something you end up having to battle. You know, it's just when it gets really, really hot. If it's in the 70s, I'll have the windows open. I don't even turn on the AC. But once it's like, maybe upper 80s, I'm like, all right, it's really hot. And we have cats, we have our parrots. We also have we have a crested gecko. Our gecko, he's not supposed to get past 85 degrees in his tank. So we have to make sure that we keep it cool in here. Um, so yeah, it's a little juggling where we have to think of all these little mini microclimates that we have created around our apartment. Um, and try to keep up with it. And I even had to get new batteries for our little temperature gauges. And so I'll show you guys in case those of you who might be new and might not have seen these. You can purchase these on Amazon. I absolutely love these. Um, so I got these were, I think, like a 4 pack for $7, something like that. And so they have, if you can also change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius if you prefer, but it tells you the humidity, the temperature, and then there's two different options. One is magnet, so you can stick it to places, or it has a um, I forgot what that's called, little handle. I forgot what that's called, for you to prop it up. And so you can put it around your house in different plant zones. So we have these everywhere. The one that I have back here, I bought that as it's like a 1 pack. That one just has like a little bit more that it tells you. Um, but these are relatively cheap, and these are the ones that I now have like all around the house in different areas. So yeah. Um, it's very, very helpful to watch. And this is yeah, closer to our AC. So here we go. I'll put that there for now. But yeah, so a couple things that we're contending with. Um, Something else, just real quick, and feel free to add questions, guys, in the chat. Anything that you're dealing with, any plants that you need help with. So yeah, we were dealing with rehydrating these poor plants that were are by my living room window. Um, no casualties, no casualties. But they were a little dry. I was like, all right, guys, I'm sorry about that. I let those guys dry out. So by my western window, I have some different types of euphorbia. I have some different types of Dracaena, but they're snake plants. So I have a couple different types, and then some kalanchoes. I have a aloe. What else is there? A string of pearls. That one I have been watering because I'm like very vigilant of that little string of pearls. So he had definitely gotten watered. Uh, I had just neglected the euphorbia, and I also have this really cool opuntia there as well. So yeah, those are the ones that I was like, oops, I have to give you guys a good watering. They needed that. Um, but again, not fully saturated, not fully saturated. And yeah, so I was dealing with that, and then dealing with the poor plants that were getting scorched in our kitchen window. We have a southeastern window as well. Um, and so there are some plants that also have been getting a little starting to blush. We have two trees in front of our house, two ash trees. So that dampens the light in the summers. During the winter, we get really nice light, and it's uh, you know, it's less hours a day. It's not as intense. So I don't, I have the plants right up against the window. But then in the summers we have the trees, so it definitely lowers the intensity there because there's a barrier, and so it kind of it dampens that light. But there are areas that the trees don't cover, and so those I have noticed some blushing, and I'm gonna have to rearrange some of those plants. But that's like this week's project. Um, and so yeah, because I think in the kitchen there's like 60 plants, and then behind me there's like 60. It's like 55 or 60, and then there's like 30 over here, and then in the room probably like another 50 or 60. So, yeah, I'm like that will be this week's project. Um, and let me see here. And I had put these actually on my desk to show you. Uh, I've been collecting some of these coloring books, and I got these on Amazon. I found this one actually at I think it was Walgreens or CVS. Um, but in case anybody is into coloring books, into adult coloring books, there's this really cool one on trees. It's just very, very calming. So what I like to do is like to scan them, and I like to color them like on my iPad. Um, and some of these I do color, but I feel bad ruining the original, so I'll make a copy and I'll just draw that. Um, but I have these, but these I bought for classes, and these are available on Amazon. So there's this herb coloring book. So I've made copies of these and given them out to students. Um, it's a really fun way also to get to know the morphology of the plant. So, like lavender and thyme. So these are really cheap. You can get them on Amazon. I have this one for herbs, and then this one for common weeds as well. Let me see here. This one I was coloring in. This is plantain, and then this one called the medicinal plants coloring book. I love lily of the valley. That's a that's actually I think that's my birth month plant is lily of the valley for May. Uh, Beautiful plant, highly toxic. So it smells amazing. The flowers are absolutely amazing, but be very wary. This is not a plant you want to ingest, especially not the berries. And these plants, when they're not in flower, people mistake them if they're new to foraging. They might grab them thinking that they're ramps or other edible types of plants. And so you want to be very, very, very mindful of those lookalikes so that you don't accidentally um, collect something. Yeah. Oh, have I grown a coconut uh, plant from a coconut? No, no, I haven't. Um, no, I've never tried. I'm not sure how well they would do. Um, yeah, I'm in a New York City apartment. Um, but yeah, I've never tried to grow a coconut plant. Um, yeah, nothing of that enormity. So yeah, like a coconut plant, or like a banana plant. Yeah. Uh, Lily of the Valley was used to poison Brock. Brock as in, wait, am I thinking Brock from is it Brock from Pokemon? Which Brock? Which Brock? Hi, Tiana, by the way. Which Brock? But yes, it is very toxic. For those of you that are into toxic plants, there's tons of books on toxic plants. Um, there is, I'm just looking, there's this one that I would recommend if anybody wants to even buy the set, because these are really cool. If you want to learn more about toxic plants, there's this set of books, um, and here we go. This one is Plants That Kill. So it's all about different toxic plants. Um, everything about how they actually attack the body. So what kind of compounds do they have? It goes into all of the science, um, and really breaks that down. So it's telling you what is it in the plant that's toxic, what parts of the plant are toxic, um, and because there are some certain plants that certain parts of them are toxic, or the plant in a certain state is of being is toxic. So for instance, like pokeweed, if you're familiar with pokeweed, is toxic, but when it's young and it's still green, it's just a sprout and it's under 7 inches, it's very commonly harvested and eaten, and totally fine. But once it kind of passes that 7 inch mark, it starts to get rosiness in the stems. So it gets like a nice red coloration. And that's by that time, that means it's no longer safe to eat. So you don't want to eat that. Things like angelica root, which a lot of folks know as a highly medicinal plant, um, great for like stomach aches too. Um, that if you have it fresh, it has some toxic properties. It can make you very sick, like if you got food poisoning. So you have to let it completely dry before it's rendered edible, essentially, like for you to have in tea and things like that. So it's very, very cool. But I really love how they kind of go in depth into the science, because that's definitely what I'm into. That really goes into the science in this book, and it really breaks down what's happening, how are they attacking the body. It's really cool, and it has some really cool stories as well, with different just like different historical references and things like that. So really, really love these. So I have that. So the Plants That Kill, highly, highly recommend. It's a hardcover. It's a hefty book. It's a hefty book, but I love it. I love it. Highly recommend. And then it's opposite comes. You can purchase them together, or you can purchase them separately. Um, I bought them as a set together. I'm trying to remember where I purchased them as a set, but I know they're available separately on Amazon, so I have seen them there. And then there's Plants That Cure. And so completely opposite side of the spectrum. It also does break down, it does talk about, the different types of chemicals, um, but it breaks them down into different medicinal uses, and here we go, and how the plants are used, some historical references and like anecdotes and things like that, um, and different types of remedies. So really, really like this one too. But when I originally learned about this set, this is what I was excited about. Um, yeah, because we have quite a few toxic plants here in New York City, some that are introduced, some that are native, and I always love learning about them. There's so many other books I have on poison. I think I even have a book. I don't see it from here on my shelf, but I think it's called Poison: A History, or no, Poison Through the Ages. I think that's what it is. Poison Through the Ages, and it also kind of breaks down the history of plants being used as poison, and um, yeah, really, really neat. I love that kind of stuff. So, oh, Breaking Bad reference. Oh my gosh. I was like Brock. Right. Place. I was like character's name Brock. Um, oh yeah, oh my gosh. I have to finish that. My husband and I, we got up to, oh, I don't want to spoil it for anybody. Um, I'll just say an explosion and Gus. And that's where we got up to, and then we didn't finish it. Like just and so I'm totally, I think like we're like a season and a half before the ending. So we have to, thanks for the reminder, because I'm like, oh yeah, we have to finish that. Um but yeah, that was a yes, I think so. I think so. Yeah, I think so. I don't want to like spoil it, so I don't want to say what's happening. But yes, for those of you who haven't, it's a great show. It's worth watching, definitely. And there are actually lots of shows that reference poisoning too. There's a wonderful show. I know I've mentioned it before, but it's called The Sinner, and it's season 2. And that what I love about that show is the lead detective. He is obsessed with plants. He's obsessed with plants, and so there's always something happening. He's either gardening, or he's talking about plants, or he's using plants to kind of help solve the the mystery that he's currently, the case he's currently working on. But the second season is heavily um, uh, kind of plant centered. That it's the weapon of choice. So that one's great. And for those of you who maybe checked out Dexter, um, there is one season as well where there is someone who uses a lot of deadly plants. So deadly plants are always very, very, very interesting. So if you ever want to check out books about them, let me know. I could give you a list. I'll put together a list of the books I have on poisoning, because there are several. There's one more I want to show you. It's called Wicked Plants. Um, I think it's Amy Stewart is the author, I want to say. Is it? Is it? Yes, Amy Stewart. This one, tiny book, really great. She has quite a few books. Um, and yeah, she will has these really gorgeous illustrations, by the way. So it's a fun little book if you want to have that on your coffee table, just have it chilling on your bookshelf. But I really love how she kind of breaks it down, puts all these really great stories. For instance, with the title, "The Weed That Killed Lincoln's Mother and Other Botanical Atrocities," and so the weed that supposedly in the myth that killed Abraham Lincoln's mother was white snake root. And so we do have a lot of white snake root here in New York City. It's common throughout parts of North America. And so it's one of those plants where uh, it's it really it smells, it looks very much like nettles if you're a first time forager and you're just learning about kind of plant identification. It's very easy to accidentally mistake that plant for nettles if you're just starting out. One key difference, of course, is it's not stinging, so it won't sting you when you hold it. It does also, if you take the leaves and crush them, they smell like bell peppers. I've just found they smell like green bell peppers. Uh, Very, very toxic. So do not ingest that plant whatsoever. And the whole idea about this whole myth on how it killed Abraham Lincoln's mother is that it's one of those. So a lot of plants are poisonous that livestock, like cows, pigs, sheep, they can eat it and they're totally fine. It does not phase them. We're the ones that get phased, so we can't handle it. So for instance, white snake root is a weed that animals will graze on that doesn't affect them, but it's one of those poisons that is permeable. It does transfer into the milk. So not all toxic plants that animals are feeding on kind of gets into the milk supply, but white snake root is one of the ones that does. So it's believed that she died after consuming milk, and they believe that the cow basically had been grazing on the white snake root. It was subsequently milked. She was subsequently milked, and that tainted milk was then given to Abraham Lincoln's mother, and that's how she got poisoned. So, and she was already elderly, so um, that's the gist of the story. But yeah, so some really cool things. There was another one. I'm trying to remember what it was, but that I'm forgetting what the plant was. Um, but somebody mistook the root for horseradish and served it to a dinner party and ended up killing like a bunch of people accidentally. Um, so it's like some really cool story, some really fun folklore and history in there for you to check out. So highly recommend. And there's plenty of house plants that are highly toxic. So for those of you that have small children or pets and maybe are just starting to get into plants, just do keep that in mind. So there are things that are really toxic and some that are mildly toxic. So it won't be a good day for anyone that accidentally consumes it. Um, but then there are some that can be deadly, especially things like sago palms are very toxic and can be fatal. Things like monstera, that whole family, monstera, philodendrons, peace lilies, pothos, which is epiprenum, gindapsis. So all of those plants are toxic to cats and dogs, birds, people. so so just be aware of that. So make sure that you have them in higher places, or or you make sure that your animals are not interested, but at least have them up above where it would be difficult for your pet um, to get. Just just to be safe, just to be safe. So uh, we have. I used to keep plants on the grounds, on the floor. Not anymore. Everything is up. Everything is up. But thankfully, the only plants that our cats like to mess with are like ponytail palms, and non-toxic plants that they have access to. Uh, so good. But so just be wary of that. Oh, Adeline, I just purchased a plant that I want to make sure about what kind so that I give it the right conditions. Yeah, sure, Adeline. Let me find you and then I can show. Here we go. I'll spotlight you. If you can turn on your video and then I should be able to spotlight you. Yeah, if anyone has any house plants that you need identified, that's one of my favorite things to do. So always feel free. You can just put in the chat, say, "Hey, I got some plants that I want you to identify," and then just make sure your camera's turned on. And I'm happy to help out. So let me see. So Adeline, feel free to turn on your video when you're ready, and I'm happy to help. Uh, Let me see. T. Bailey. I just purchased a baby string of pearls, a small plastic nursery pot, this weekend. I sprinkled the top with diatomaceous earth so it wouldn't possibly contaminate all my current plants and kept it distant. However, the nursery had the soil very soaked. Should I repot it into drier soil or a specific kind of substrate, or let it acclimate to its new environment first? Please help. Yes. Okay. Great question. Firstly, yes. With the diatomaceous earth, if the even if the bottom is wet, like the actual substrate is wet, if you sprinkle it on top, it's fine. The only thing is that if you were to water from the top, or the plant was to get wet on the top, that would wet the diatomaceous earth. You might just want to add like a little bit more of a layer to it, if that's what because yeah, it gets kind of deactivated once it gets wet. So the the part closest to the soil. So you just want to have it maybe a little bit thicker. But that's great. Diatomaceous earth is great. Um, and keeping it distant, so kind of quarantining it, perfect, perfect. And yes, so in terms of the soil being fully soaked, that's fine. So with string of pearls, they kind of like a drown and drought type of watering system. So basically, if it's nice and soaked now, uh, put make sure it's in a nice bright location, and just let it use up all that water. So you're just not going to water it until so this could be about 2 weeks or so. It really depends. Everybody's house is different, how much light you're getting, how hot it is in your house. That might make it dry out faster. But it's kind of an estimate is about 2 weeks. If it's very, very thirsty, you will see the pearls start to wrinkle. And so this is a great indicator too that, oh gosh, okay, it's dehydrated. If the pearls are nice and plump, I would say just it's still fine. I wouldn't unless it's like completely bone dry. And you're like, oh gosh, yeah, there's like not a drop of moisture in here. Then yeah, sure, you can give it a good bottom water, let it soak, and then again, let it be. I've made the mistake before of having of watering mine too often, or just yeah, I was watering them way too often, or I was going like, okay, I'm gonna completely wait until like it gets really, really wrinkled and then I'll water it. And I've found a happy medium. And so it's very dry and it just starts to look like they're not as full, but they're not getting as wrinkled. They're not getting wrinkled. It just looks like they're kind of deflating a little bit. And then that tells me, all right, cool, it's time for me to water. I water, they get nice and plump again. And then that's how I've been keeping them. I would not suggest changing the substrate just yet. Um, Usually they're pretty good in their substrate. They don't have the craziest root systems. They have pretty shallow and very fine root systems. And so uh, I would say would probably cause a lot of damage. So I would say to keep it in that substrate. They're usually good. I've had my string of pearls in there. Uh, gosh, it's like almost a year now. Same substrate, so I haven't changed the substrate. Um, so it should be fine. If you are like, you know what, I really don't like the substrate, I want to switch it up. I would say give the plant at least 2 weeks to kind of get acclimated. It's better if you wait even 4 to 6 weeks to really make sure that the plant is doing okay. You by then you'll notice if there's anything wrong with the plant that might make you go, oh wait, I'm gonna put off repotting a little bit. Um, so yeah, I would say let it just dry out and then give it a really good soak. So you're just gonna want to give it a nice bottom water, and then again let it dry out. They're wonderful plants, but I've killed like three, and then I finally got it right. So it's definitely a plant you end up with a lot of trial and error. They're wonderful plants, but yeah, you kind of have to go, okay, wait, how do I manage this little guy? But so far so good. Um, and for those of you also that might not know what diatomaceous earth is, I actually just made a jar for my neighbor. Where did I put the jar? Oh, here. So I just made a jar. I have a big bag here. And so my neighbor downstairs, she's been getting ants that are coming in through the window. And so diatomaceous earth is something you definitely want to have. Um, and so basically what this is, it's essentially fossilized diatoms. And so it's this powder that it 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 works really. It's like silica rich, but it's basically made of these little creatures that are kind of shaped like diamonds. They're very spiky. And what happens is that when you apply this to your plants or People also use this in forms of pest control. Oh, sorry, had a call coming in there, had to decline. Um, but yeah, so they use it in pest control. And essentially, when invertebrates, so like ants, for instance, try to walk through this, it's very sharp to them. So for us, it's like a powder. But for them, it's very sharp and it starts to puncture them. And it can cause them extreme dehydration and it just eventually kills them. So it's a great non-toxic form of pest control, and it works great on house plants. So, yes, ants definitely, but I bought it for house plants, and people do actually eat this. This is food grade, and so people mix this into their smoothies and things for when they need like a silica supplement. Um, and so you can buy the food grade type, but this is wonderful if you have pets, if you have small children, and you're dealing, let's say, with fungus gnat or other types of like pests where you're putting them on your plants, or maybe you're dealing with moths or things like that. So you have them like on top of your cabinets, or I hate, oh my gosh, a few years ago I had a bunch of it's a funny name. They're called confused flower beetles, and so they're pantry beetles. So essentially, I had bought, forgot if it was cane sugar or it was some type of sugar that I had bought that was in like a paper type bag, and I had it in the cabinet, and I just didn't use it for years. And I was cleaning out my cabinet, getting rid of anything that was expired. And when I see that the whole bag had been chewed and I had a whole thing with these beetles eating sugar, and then they had gone and started uh, chewing on other things. And so since then, I completely cleaned out those cabinets, and I have switched. Everything is now, when I buy rice or I buy anything, I put it into jars, pasta. Everything is in jars, so I've never had that issue again. But they're called like flower beetles, so they're very common. You find them in rice and things like that. Um, so if you have those types of issues, you can put this in the back of your cabinets or above your cabinets, and you never have to worry about if a child were to, decide to be a kid and inspect it, taste it, or a small, if you have a puppy or a kitten decides to, come across it, it won't be toxic. Um, but for your plants, so if you have, for instance, fungus gnats, when they lay their eggs in your substrate, the larvae are living in the substrate and then they emerge. So this is a great way to combat and kind of nip that in the bud right there, cut their life cycle short, because you'll be putting this on the surface of your soil. So you can just sprinkle it on top. You can use a little spoon and just get a nice layer on top. It's not harmful to your plants in any way. And so you just kind of add that on top. And what happens is now when the larva tries to emerge, it has this barrier, and they'll just die. So you cut off that part of the life cycle. Um, and then you go ahead, if you were to water your plant, the only thing is that it's very microscopic. So if you water your plants from the top, then if you bottom water your plants, it'll last definitely longer. But if you top water your plants, once it gets wet, it kind of gets deactivated. It starts to kind of get mushy. So you would have to and it also kind of pushes through the substrate as you're watering. It follows the water through, um, because it's so small. So what you could do is just kind of replenish it on top again. So really wonderful. Oh, which brand do I recommend? I actually have the bag here. So I have had this bag, I don't even know now. It's been well over a year. Uh, Even more than that. I think I've had it the entire pandemic. Um, and it's still, look how much I have. So, it was pretty full. Um, and it has come in handy. This is something you can also use a brush, like a little painting brush, and apply to stems and leaves if you are dealing with something like a spider mite infestation where you wash the plant, you sprayed it with rubbing alcohol, and you're like, these things are still here. Um, you could just do a little light dusting, very light dusting. So don't like rub it into the plant, but more of like a little dust. And this can help, especially in the nooks and crannies, to kill any babies that might have stayed around. Um, and then you don't have to do it all the time, but just kind of during that time where you're actively trying to kill the infestation. And then, in a few weeks, when you see your plant is totally fine, then you can, give your plant a rinse and it's going to be fine. It won't get affected. But this is the Harris brand, and I get the food grade. So it's totally safe. So the fossil shell flower. It does come with this really cool thing. So it's like a little accordion, and so it dusts it if you're applying it like that. So I got 4 pounds, and I've had this for a really long time, and that it doesn't go bad. Um, and the only thing I will say is that the bag, it has like this little like Ziploc type of deal here. Um, just for those of you, I have asthma, so I like to make sure I give everybody this warning. Um, that when you open the bag, never open it like you're opening up a chip bag or something, because it's very fine. It's so fine. Um, and what happens is if you pop the bag open, it kind of goes poof, like smoke. And if you have asthma, it's very sharp. And so if it gets into your nasal passages down your throat, it can make it really itchy and it can cause a coughing fit. So you don't want to create a big cloud of this stuff. So when you open it, just be, you cut it and then be very mindful that you just open it very slowly. And then it's totally fine. So just don't do one of these, because that, yeah, don't do that. But yeah, this is great. It doesn't go bad. It's one of my favorite kind of infestation protocols. I have it and for anything. So fungus gnats, I've used it for mealy bugs, for spider mites. And I have also used it for ants. And so I thought we were about to get ants because our neighbor downstairs was getting them, and I saw a few on our windowsill. But then that was it. So we didn't get any more. Um, and so thankfully, but a few years ago, they were doing construction, and the ants were like escaping, I guess, from their nest. And so they were going up the side of our building, and they were going into all of the apartments. So they were on the second floor, so they were getting to us. They were getting all the way up to the third floor. Um, and we had no choice. I had to put a bunch of diatomaceous earth on the outside of our window and on the inside of the window. And that was what stopped them from coming in. They just skipped our window and kept going. And we had like a bunch that had tried to get through. Uh, so it works wonders. It works wonders, and it lasts a really, really long time because you're not using like copious amounts. So, and I think this was like 20 bucks, 20 or 25 bucks, I want to say. And I got this off Amazon. So Harris brand food grade. I would recommend food grade, just, just in case, like if our cat or something were to lick it, we never had that issue. They were never interested in it. But if you have a pet or like a toddler running around, um, just keep that in mind. Um, Marianne, they show you how to grow coconuts on YouTube by soaking them to start the seed. I don't think they grow too tall, kept as a house plant. Um, yeah, no, they probably, that's pretty neat. I mean, that is something that would be pretty interesting. I definitely want to grow a pineapple. Um, and but yeah, in terms of not growing as too tall as a house plant, they might just grow slower. They might just grow slower. What I'm afraid is if I wouldn't be able to keep the level of humidity that they would need. It's why a lot of folks, if they have banana trees or even like birds of paradise, they end up getting those really frilled leaves. The leaves are no longer this like beautiful kind of shape. They're kind of like they look like they like you took a scissor and you kind of went like this to them all along the edge. And that's caused by not being able to regulate the humidity in the home. Um, which is very common when in households. And so, you have your AC, you're turning a fan on, the door is opening, windows are closed, and so we never have a constant, kind of ambient humidity. And so what ends up happening is that those leaves start to suffer for it. So my worry would be uh, just not being able to give it its yeah, the right conditions, and then I mean it would still grow eventually. um yeah, because you can't like prune them back, and so I think it would eventually, if it had the conditions and the time, it would probably get of course it would just keep growing as long as long as you gave it those things. It might just slow down because it's not going to have everything it likes, and the grow lights can only do so much. Uh, it's not a replicate. Um, yeah, I can't replicate the sunlight, but it would be interesting. I would like I had bought a few years ago, I think 2 years ago, I bought one of those lemon trees, the pink lemon trees. But I didn't realize that the poor thing it came with a bunch of mealy bugs. And so I couldn't. I tried. I've had mealy bugs with my Hoyas. If you have Hoyas, mealy bugs are something you're gonna have to fight. So I had gotten mealy. There was mealy bugs on it though, and it was in quarantine, so I knew that it came with the mealy bugs. But oh my gosh, that poor thing. I tried all these different things, and the mealy bugs were just really voracious on that plant. For Hoya, I feel like it's a lot easier. They're much more. It's like a more. They're much more succulent type of plant, and so I think that one, that's why mealy bugs are attracted to them. But two, it just makes it easier to kind of battle it out. But it's just a battle that you're gonna have to always keep keep your eyes on, because yeah, mealy bugs love Hoyas. And then I ended up getting mealy bugs on our dragon fruit. I have a very large dragon fruit cactus, and that was a battle. But we won. And so, yeah, for those that might not know, if you're here in New York City, there is a group called Beneficial Insects of New York. You can find them on Facebook. And what's wonderful is we do a group order of beneficial insects uh, for um, for battling. It's a form of what is called integrative pest management. So, for any of you who have plants and you're like, oh my gosh, I just keep getting this spider mite infestation, just keeps coming back, or you're battling mealy bugs or even thrips. Thrips are the worst. You're battling them, you're like, I don't know what to do, or there are pests in the soil. There are things like fungus gnat larvae, or there are other types of a root kind of attacking, like there are mealy bugs, root mealies, things like that. There are different types of invertebrates that you can purchase that can battle that out for you, that won't harm you and won't harm your plants. And so there are things like beneficial nematodes. So when you get them, they look like sand. It's basically eggs, and you put them in water, and I think you have to soak them for like an hour, 2 hours. Basically, it kind of activates the eggs and gets them to hatch, and then you water your plants. And then these nematodes are carnivorous, and so they eat, a bunch of critters that are living in the soil that shouldn't be, and so which is great, and it doesn't mess with other things that you want in your soil. So like springtails or other beneficial microbes, it doesn't affect them, but it will attack different types of like mealies or larvae, like fungus gnat larvae. Um, and then there are beneficial mites, so that you can buy, that you can put good mites to battle the bad mites. And so you can get those. So they come in little sachets. So you don't have to touch anything or worry about that. And they don't fly. So you don't have to worry about that. We love getting ladybugs. And so when, especially, if we start to see like mealies or anything like that, it's usually during the summers, we'll end up getting a couple ladybugs and putting them in strategically in certain plants for them to eat. And it's wonderful. And then they will travel from plant to plant, but again, they're not going to eat your plants. They're not worried about that. And yeah, they're just helping out. And then there's different other types of larvae that you can buy, like green lacewing larvae. I love catching green lacewings. They're always attracted to the light in front of our building. Sorry, my throat dried out. Let me grab some of my water. But they're really attracted to like the light on our stoop, and so I love catching them, and I purposely release them into the apartment because then they lay eggs. They'll go they kind of go in search of food, and it's the eggs that actually end up alerting me, like, oh my gosh, there's something on the plant, because they'll lay the eggs on plants to have something, so that their larvae have a food source. And so that's how I've actually caught a few mealybug infestations, was actually thanks to green lacewing eggs, which look really cool. It looks like a little hair is hanging off of your leaf with a little drop at the end. It almost looks like a little water drop. Very interesting egg shape, um, but very cool. And it's a great indicator too. It's like, oh, whoops, okay, so there's something on here that she thinks will feed her young. So, um, yeah, you can do that too. So if you don't want to buy a bunch of ladybugs, you can definitely catch them and put them on your plants. And yeah. Great. Yes. So Jamie is asking, how do you transport ladybugs home and then to your plant? Great question. So, they usually come in these little mesh bags. And so, depending on how you get them, so we have bulk ordered them with the group, and so they're shipped, and then you just pick them up. So there's various pickup locations. This is how Art Network works in New York City. Um, then there are places like different plant stores that are now carrying live ladybugs. So they carry the ladybugs. And so that's easier. It's also cheaper because you can just go pay, like $10. And I think we were paying like $10 and you get like 500. So it's pretty cheap. And then yeah, you have this little mesh bag, and if you are not going to be releasing them right away, or if you are going to be releasing some and not all of them, you can't actually put them. I know this is going to sound crazy, but you can't actually put the bag into your fridge, not the freezer, but the bottom fridge, um, for a few days or even up to 2 to 3 weeks. And what happens is that it causes them to go kind of like into a hibernation mode. And so I think it's called torpor. And so basically it just kind of, they slow down and they just kind of like go into like a sleep state. And then if you're like, okay, I kind of want to do one wave now, and then I want like 2 weeks later, I want to do another wave of ladybugs, and you don't want to use all of them at once, you can do that. You can put them in your fridge. I know some people are probably like, what are you talking about? But yes, yes, you can do that. And then how do you transport them to your plant? So there's different methods. So, well, for like ladybugs, for some like mites, for instance, they'll come in little sachets. So, like those little deodorizer sachets, or like air fresheners that have like the little hook. They kind of look like that. And so what you do is you poke a hole and you hang it on your plant. Or if it's like a cactus, you kind of lean it on your plant, and then the mites escape and climb onto there. When it's like different types of larvae, like green lacewing larvae, you're just gonna they come in like these little chambers where it's one larva per chamber because they're cannibalistic. So you don't want to put them all together. We could take that larva and it just you pop it and then put it directly on the plant. You don't have to touch it if you don't want to. And then for ladybugs, that one is just open up the bag and you can place them. If you want to kind of slow them down, you can put them in the fridge for a few hours. And then when you open the bag, they're kind of much more sluggish. And so then you can put them on certain plants. Now they will move from plant to plant, but if the plant has an active infestation, they're just going to climb and start feasting. And then, they'll we have woken up with a ladybug on the pillow, flying off. We've had them, it's not like they're swarming you or anything, but we've had like one land on us and then take off again. But they're much more interested in the plant, so they don't like attack you or anything. I know it sounds crazy releasing like hundreds of ladybugs, um, but it's really helpful. It's really helpful to the plants, and they're not, messing with stuff, so they're not like a attacking your furniture or anything like that. I think it's just it's like, oh, whoops, not trying not to make sure you don't like if you see one flying by that you don't think it's like a fly or something and accidentally murder them. But it's really neat. I really like integrative pest management. Before I learned about integrative pest management, I was using things like systemic pesticides, bonides, things like that. And it one, it's something where it renders the plant unsafe. So if you're growing herbs, let's say like basil, chives, things like that at home, if you're battling certain pests, because it happens. If you're creating an ecosystem, pests are part of that ecosystem. Um, and so it's an inevitability. You might go years without one pest, and that's awesome. And then one will show up and then you just have to deal with it. Uh, but yeah, having them pesticides would render it, unusable. You can't eat it anymore. Then there's plants where you're like, well, I'm not going to eat it. This was a house plant. However, some of them are very sensitive to those pesticides, and then it ends up burning them and killing them. And then it also renders it unsafe, more unsafe for your pets or, kids if you have kids that are visiting or kids yourself that might end up getting into your plants and touching them, touching their mouths. And there was the last time I used them, I was spraying, I was wearing a yellow rubber glove. And then after I was done, I had removed the glove and then I just absentmindedly I grabbed the spray bottle and I didn't realize it still had some of the liquid. So it got on my hands and I washed my hands. My hands became numb. And I was like, okay, this can't be good. and, and I was like, all right, there has to be another way. Like, I don't want to poison myself. I don't want to poison anything else around me. And I'm trying to, I love these plants. I don't want to lose them. Like, what do I do? And I started finding out, hey, yeah, you can actually get beneficial nematodes. So I tried those first. That was like my gateway into integrative pest management was beneficial nematodes. And then I was like, that's wonderful. Well, what about things above the soil? And then I started getting into ladybugs. And then I learned about beneficial mites. There's not ladybug killers, mealybug destroyers. There we go. They're called mealybug destroyers. They're these little beetles. There's just so many different ones that you can get and that help take care of your plants and help serve the little ecosystem you're creating. And it's wonderful. And then I also learned about things like adding springtails. So I always had springtails because I have different terrarium setups for my animals. But I didn't realize you can actually add springtails to certain plants that are staying moist for long periods of time, and they will combat uh, fungus gnats. So if you have a lot of plants that need a lot of moisture, uh, you should get springtails. Springtails, they don't bite, they're not going to hurt you, they don't hurt your plants. You can just buy them and just literally shake them out. And what they do is that they eat fungus. They eat rotting materials and fungus. So if you have a plant that's staying moist a lot of the time, this is the perfect breeding ground for fungus. And fungus gnats are that's their food supply. So if you want to combat that, you can outcompete them by putting springtails, which are something you're not, aren't going to hurt you, aren't going to bother you or annoy you or fly around in your face. And they will eat all of the fungus. And so the fungus gnats, their larvae won't survive because there won't be any food for them. So then you can go ahead and get them, and it's wonderful. Springtails are wonderful. There's so many beneficial invertebrates. So I would I would recommend checking it out if you're really battling some pests that just keep coming back. But yeah, hope that helps. And if you're here in New York City, feel free to message me. I can if you put onto Google like beneficial insects, I think it's of New York, beneficial insect group of New York, something like that. Then yeah, you can become part of the group. And then what we do is that we group order because the shipping is expensive because these are live animals. And so the shipping can, you might get an order for $15, but then the shipping's $32. So what we do is that everybody orders what they're going to get, and the shipping is the same. And so now everybody pays like $6 for shipping. It helps kind of split it out that way. And then there are different, depending on where you're located, you put, hey, this is the closest pickup location to me. And then you just head over there and pick up your stuff from there. So I'm not sure if other cities have that set up, but we definitely have it here in New York City, and it has been amazing. Really, really has. And then you make, of course, other plant friends that you can talk to, and hey, how did you battle this type of infestation? And so it's a wonderful kind of a trove of information that you can dig into too. Definitely check, if you are into plants and maybe you feel like, oh, I don't really have anybody around me that will talk about plants with. Check local groups. You can see if there's a horticultural society by you. There are things like succulent societies, there's orchid societies, there's cactus societies. Check out your local botanical gardens as well. Ask if they have like a friends of organization, or if they have like a different, like sometimes there's a botanical garden club just for that garden. And what's cool about those garden clubs is that sometimes they host their meetings at the gardens, and so you can actually go to the garden for the meetings. And there are some really cool ones where they'll host meetings at different gardens, and they will actually like swap out. A lot of these are like really established, prolific collectors. And so when you go to meetings, sometimes there are swaps. And so those are always fun because you can end up finding really cool plants, like unicorn plants that you wouldn't otherwise be able to find. So it's always really, really great to check those out. So if you're like, I want more community, look, there definitely there have to be places. There literally have to be places. Even last year in September, we went to my best friend's house up in Albany. And when we were driving through, they were having a fair, and one of the tents was actually a horticultural society for her area, and she didn't even know. She was like, "We have one," and yeah, so just check it out. You'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised, that you might have a local group that you can connect with and talk about plants, or come to them also with any problem, if especially if they're very specific. Some of them, like for orchids only, cactus only, things like that, so much more specific. But if that's what you're looking for, try to connect with them, because it's always lovely. It really is. It's always a good experience. But all right, let me see here. Okay, so it's after 1. I don't see any more questions, so I'm gonna hop off because I have to hop on to work in a few minutes. But thanks so much, everyone, for hopping on and hanging out. I hope this was helpful. Definitely feel free, always come ask your questions. You can always pop on video. You can ask live. You can show me your plants. If you're having any issues, feel free to. I'm currently compiling some lists of books that I have, so I'm going to be making those available. And for those of you, let me quickly drop that in the chat. But the Dropbox links look like they're working again. So I had last week, folks were trying to access the recordings, and it was saying that the link, it needed like a break because I guess a lot of people were using it. And so just make sure that if it does say that, you can just look later in the day and it should be fine. I'm going to drop this in the chat, but there's all the previous classes and also free resources. So there's free books in there for those of you that might be interested in learning more about like plant chemistry in terms of color, because I was talking about blushing, for instance. There's a great PDF there called Nature's Palette. And it's a hefty book, but it's an ebook. You can check it out, and it goes into the science of plant color. I also, about like 2 weeks ago, I added 15 new resources in there. So there's ebooks, there's little e-guides, there's some academic articles as well, on everything from like house plants to just plant in general to medicinal plants. I have some stuff in there, I think, about mushrooms as well. I do also teach how to cultivate mushrooms, and so I'm going to be starting up a class where I'm probably going to do like 4 6 week sessions that I'm going to be offering up. And so I'll put more information once those are ready, and in case anybody wants to hop on and learn. But there will be replays. But yeah, I want to set those up. And yeah, so there's other classes too that I'm going to be offering. I'm going to start offering my the botany class again, the herbalism classes again. Um, and I am currently working on the curriculum for birding. So for intro to birding, for any of you that might be interested in learning a little bit more about birds. And so there's a lot coming. There's a lot coming. So keep an eye out. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your Monday and that your week is off to a good start, and definitely have a great rest of your week. But thanks so much, everyone, for hopping on and hanging out. And I hope I see you next week. But have a great one. Bye for now.